Hey,
Hello.
you're live. Hi.
Hi.
So, welcome to the live show of City of Heavenly Fire. I actually can't believe we're on the last book of the Mortal Instruments. It's very, very sad, but also feels like an achievement, don't you think?
I'm not sad. I'm so happy. Like for not because I'm happy to be done, but like it honestly feels like a really big achievement and I'm like we got here and like I'm so excited for what's coming next that it just feels really good to be here where we are.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very excited for the Dark Artificers, which we're going to read next year.
I'm excited for everything like Bane Chronicle, Shadowhunter Academy, Dark Artificers, Ghost of the Shadow Market. Like there's so many good things coming and I'm so excited and I really feel like we climbed a mountain
I agree. I agree.
and we're at the top now.
Totally. Oh, it's been
hmm
good. It's like I'm really glad we decided to do this as well. And yeah, feels like our first proper milestone, I guess, because the other ones will be like more like
hmm
distinct things, whereas this was like I don't know, the first real storyline to get fully wrapped up. And we
And I think
started
this is, yeah, sorry. I think this is like the biggest milestone. Like, because yes, we still have another two trilogies to finish, but this was like a trilogy and a six-book series that we finished both like in one. So it just feels like the biggest That's why I said it feels like we climbed a mountain and now we're at the top, and now we can just enjoy the view of the rest of the books.
I love that analogy. I agree.
hmm I
Um
just came up with it.
okay. So did you want to give some of your general thoughts about the book?
Also, just want to say thank you guys for joining us if you are watching. Um, yeah. So let me just check my notes quickly. So I just made a note that I found it a bit strange that Tessa had heavenly fire in her and it just went away after a few days. Like she just waited it out and it left her body, whereas Jace had heavenly fire and it stayed in him and it didn't just leave after a few days. So I just thought that was a little bit strange. I don't know.
I think it might also have to do with like their blood because Tessa is a warlock, so she probably like metabolized it a bit differently because of her magic, and then Jace is already like has more angel blood in it, so maybe he held on to it a bit more because he's more angelic than most, whereas like Tessa's
Maybe,
blood is more like demon blood technically than angel.
maybe. I don't know. It could also be because the angel, I mean, the heavenly fire was in the sword and then it needed like a new host, if you could call it that, and then Jace became that. But I don't know, it's just like a little thing that I noted, like, oh, it left Tessa's body but not Jace's.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. I took a picture of something and I just want to see what I took a picture of because it's like a page. um uh oh, it's just I always say that I have a favorite part of the Bane Chronicles, and then it like kind of mentioned, not mentioned, but it's like kind of a hint at that here, and it's the part um where Magnus thinks he remembered the first time. Oh, Alec thinks he remembered the first time Magnus had ever kissed him against the wall outside his apartment. And all his bones had turned to liquid, and he thought, oh, right, this is what it's supposed to be like. I get it now. And like that kiss is in the Bane Chronicles, and it's my favorite part of the book. So I was like, oh, like Alec even thinks about it here,
It's
and
cute.
then I just love it.
They reference the Bane Chronicles so much though, and like I'm glad we read it in this order because now I'm like more excited to read it because like it's the book
hmm
that gets handed to Alec.
hmm
And it's just
Yeah,
like so
exactly. And then also, like, it's just so cute that Alec thinks, oh, right, this is how it's supposed to be. And then Magnus, we later find out that Magnus thinks, um, he thinks something along the lines of, this one fits, this is right. And then it's just so cute hearing both their experiences, or like both their thoughts, like Alex in this book and then Magnus is in the next one, even though we haven't read the next one.
Yeah.
And then I'd also say throughout both series, so like the Infernal Devices and this series, we're always led to thinking of Jem as Jem. And even though he's a silent brother, even though he's called Brother Zachariah, we are never led to think of him as a silent brother. We're always thinking about him as Jem, like, oh, that's Jem. It's never like Brother Enoch or whatever, you just think of him as a silent brother. Whereas with Jem, you always think about him as Jem, and even if his name is Brother Zachariah, even if, like, before he became human again, when he was still a silent brother, you still think of him as Jem. And I don't know, I just thought that was really nice. And it made obviously a difference that we read the Infernal Devices in between all this, because we wouldn't have had the same experience with that, and we wouldn't really have known who Jem is. Brother Zachariah's story during the Mortal Instrument would have really meant nothing, really. It would have not been important at all had we not known Jem's story.
I'm curious though, because I think you're the only one of us that actually read the last book without having read the Infernal Devices. Do you remember having done that?
Maybe, but the time that I read in publication order, so my second time reading the books, that stands out more to me. So I remember that mostly. I don't really remember the time I didn't read in publication order.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
And then I also just say there are so many things mentioned that set us up for the next trilogy and the next books. So there's so many things that I didn't realize. I completely forgot that the Blackthorn children were such a huge part of this book. I honestly just forgot that that was a thing, with Jem, his story, and even small things like Diana.
Mm-hmm.
She became part of the story, and the Wild Hunt became a bigger part of the story with Mark and whatever. And so there's just so many things that are setting us up for the next trilogy and also the next few books, which is really cool. And I didn't remember that it did that.
I remember they got introduced, but I also didn't really remember all of the little ways. Like I thought they were there at the beginning. I remember the part at the beginning where all of the parents died,
Mm-hmm.
and then the part where they were being attacked in the end during the battle. Like I knew those were two pivotal parts, but I totally forgot like all the in between parts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I really liked how it was interwoven. I think she did it really well and like
Mm-hmm.
balanced introducing Emma's perspective with Clary's and then a few other people's as well. And it was really
Mm-hmm.
well done. I think this
Yes.
book is probably like my favorite out of the Mortal Instruments
Okay.
6 books. Yeah.
No, it is a very good book because it just has so much going on.
Yeah, great. Um,
Okay, that's all I have. So your turn.
okay. Um, yeah, I'll just add on to what you said. We were already seeing a lot of the character development of the new characters she introduced, especially like Emma a lot. And I really loved seeing Clary and Emma's relationship growing. And I didn't really remember that or pick up on it that
Mm-hmm.
much the first time around.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it really stuck with me how Clary just like wanted to take care of her because she saw so much of Jace in Emma. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it
Mm-hmm.
was just very,
Yeah, I just want to add something. I really liked seeing 12-year-old Emma because now I'm so excited to see 17-year-old Emma. Like, I'm so excited because I can already picture this like older version, and Jules as well. Like, he's just this little boy, and because I've already read the other books, which I don't know if that's, I can picture Jules. I can picture 17-year-old Jules and seeing them as 12-year-olds, and then like knowing I'm about to read about them as 17-year-olds. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited to read their stories again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and even the part with Emma's parents dying, like she
Mm-hmm.
worked that into the story really well, and we already saw that Emma doesn't think that Sebastian killed her parents.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and another thing that really bothered me about, or like, I mean, it was a good part of the story, but what I didn't like about some of the characters was the Clave and the people in power really kind of mistreating everybody around them and being really prejudiced all the time, and it's just a continuous theme. And even with the children, they were really like harsh on them unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated the scene just before, or like the chapter just before the epilogue, where they were making all of the like new rules and consequences of the Dark War, and
Mm-hmm.
just seeing them so nonchalantly oppressing people that wouldn't necessarily have had a choice. Like if your leader tells you to do something, you kind of don't have a choice, and it should have been the Sealy Queen that was punished, not every fairy just because they're a fairy, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. And also hate that they sent Helen away.
Me too.
And I don't know, it's just because she did, like, she even said she fought in like 3 wars or something on their sides. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's really bad, and you could just see like they still have that prejudice in them, even though they made like the accords and everything. They still don't actually like downworlders, and
I know.
like they still have been raising their children that way, with like how Alec reacted to Simon at first, and how like they had that moment where like in the caves and whatever, and Simon needed to drink blood, and like Alex said that he was trying, and then we know that later Alec really, really does try, and he's a really good like leader in terms of um, overcoming the oppression and making genuine relationships instead of just like having
Mm.
the performative side, how most of the other shadow hunters tend to do.
Because
So
he becomes part of the change, basically.
yes, yes.
Yeah. And then this generation of like shadow hunters is really going to be what changes the world.
Yeah. And there was also so many things that I forgot happened in this book. I think I read it really fast the first time around because I was just like, I need to know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then even just spreading out the series helped me separate things a lot more in my mind. So when I was reading this book, I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. I totally forgot that everybody got kidnapped. I knew Melion was shady, but I didn't remember why.
Mm.
And I forgot that he was just half fairy and he could lie.
Yeah, I
Like,
also didn't know that.
I forgot.
Mm.
Uh,
But then the way Alec killed him, though,
oh yeah,
no mercy.
yeah, he was pissed. He was.
Hmm. The
Um,
description of Malion just like sliding across the room.
Yikes.
But I
Um,
mean, Magnus had been kidnapped, so
yeah,
Alec had totally had a reason.
yeah. And uh, I'm really proud of Jace for like realizing that he was kind of neglecting his friendship with Alec later on in the book, because he was very like in his own mind at the beginning because of the heavenly fire and stuff.
Mm.
Um, but
Which that
then
kind of makes sense. I don't think you can blame him for that.
he can't. But I
Mm.
think he did good, like friendship wise, and I liked how they focused a lot more on like the male friendships in this book, with Alec and Jace and Simon and all of them having like distinct moments of bonding and stuff, and it was just so cute. And I totally forgot that Simon's blood could heal people. I was like,
I know, I
don't.
also didn't know that. There's so much that I like forgot, like you said, because previously when in the previous book when Clary like stabbed Jace with with what sword was it? The sword from the angel. Glorious.
Mhm.
Like in my mind, that was gonna be Sebastian, and Sebastian was like gonna die, which doesn't actually make sense because then there wouldn't be a next book. But then I forgot how Sebastian actually died, and then like I completely forgot how she put the heavenly fire into her sword and that whole ordeal. Like, so it was kind of like reading it for the first time, I guess.
Yeah.
But to be fair, all the other books no, I was about to say I read them all 3 times and that one only twice, but I think I read that one 3 times as well.
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah, but I forgot so much of it, which is like surprising. And as I was going, I remembered what was going to happen, but still the part of um of Clary killing Sebastian, that was all like a surprise. And then I like really not loved, but it was such a good part of the book when Sebastian became like Jonathan and became a normal human and green eyes, and he was like so sorry for what he did, and he was like, don't be sad that I'm dead, like I want myself dead too, like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I just loved that part. And then also so many things happen in this book, like the praetor Lupus was burned
So,
to the ground, and
and like
Maya.
Lily killing Maureen. That I totally forgot how that happened. I knew she died, but I didn't remember
hmm
how she died or who
But
killed her.
honestly, I thought Maya died too, and I'm a bit surprised that she didn't. In my head, Maya died, but it was only what's his name, Jordan. In my
Yeah.
head, they both died, so I was a bit surprised at that.
Oh no, I remember her and Bat dating again. Like I distinctly remember
I
that.
remember that as well, but that hasn't happened yet.
Well,
Is
they're
that still
like,
gonna happen?
yeah.
Mm?
I think also in the epilogue they have a little moment.
Mm?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. So a lot of surprises and. Mm.
Yeah. I also forgot how early on in the book Jordan died. I expected it to be a
Mm.
little later on, but it was really early on, and I don't know, it took me by surprise, and I needed to take a break after that. I wasn't prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want to talk about your favorite parts of the book? What you like the
Mm-hmm.
most about it?
Oh, your general thoughts finished.
Yeah, pretty much. I could have added more, but I was so into reading that
Mm-hmm.
forgot to make notes at
I
a lot
know,
of.
same. Like, I just read. So, my favorite part. This is hard. Mm, I don't know. You go first. I'll think on it.
Okay. I kind of really liked Alec and Magnus getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Of course. Mm,
Yeah,
of
that was
course.
a good, satisfying part. And like what he said, what did he say? Oh, he's something like, "Oh my Alec, you've been so sad," or something like that. And I was
I
just
didn't
like,
know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like how he has this whole thing where Alec is the first shadow hunter that he's loved, and they also had that moment where he was like, "You're the first of many things for me," or something, and how he
Mm-hmm.
was about how his heart was hardening, and how he didn't realize it until he met Alec, and like when he walked in the door at the party, and like how you know that Magnus liked him since he saw him.
Mm-hmm. That was really
Ah,
cute. But then also, like, when I liked how Magnus brought up all the other Shadowhunters' names, who we now know from the previous book, like
yes.
Will, and then I don't think technically so far we've met James and Lucy, but obviously you and I know James and Lucy.
Mhm.
And it
Yes.
was just so cool how he like brought them up.
Yes.
And I love how all these books fit into each other like a puzzle. Like I was actually thinking about this, like everything just falls into place so perfectly from like all the series, and all the gaps just get like filled the more you read. And I love
Yeah,
that.
me too. And my other favorite part was where Tessa comes in at the end and like becomes part of the story again, and like
Mm-hmm.
how different she is to the Tessa that we kind of just left behind, and she's like now the Tessa from the epilogue
Mm-hmm.
of Clockwork Princess. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and she even has like the bracelet she was wearing, and she touches it, and I was like, ah. And
Oh.
they don't mention again where it comes from, but now we know that it was like her anniversary present from
Mm-hmm.
Will, and it's just
That's what everything just slots into place so nicely. And I love that we know that it's Tessa, because if we didn't read the books in publication order, we wouldn't have known Tessa, and we wouldn't
yeah,
have known everything she went through to get there where she was. And speaking of that, I think one of my favorite parts as well was when Jem became a person again, like un
yeah,
un
silent brothered.
unsilent brothered. um and Jace went to talk to him in his room, and that was just like so nice, like the things he said and the way he was.
Yeah,
I don't know, I just love Jem. We all love Jem.
yes, he
And
had
we wouldn't
such
have loved Jem
yeah,
had we not, like, I can't stop saying how important publication order is. If we had not read in publication order, we would not have loved Jem as much as we do, and Jem unsilent brothering wouldn't have meant so much.
yeah. Remember that time when you didn't want to read the Infernal Devices? You were just like, "Oh, it's not necessary," and I was like, "You don't understand. You've got to
I
do it."
don't remember, but if you don't read in publication order, it's boring. So can't blame me.
Oh, yeah,
And like I said, the whole Clockwork storyline is not my favorite, but it makes it worth it in the end.
it does. I also like I mentioned this before, but like Clary and Emma's moments I really liked as well. And then I also liked the moment where Clary got her sword and kind of reclaimed her name for herself and for
Mhm.
good, and
Mhm.
like instead of just rejecting like her other ancestors who were probably not bad people, she decided to like make the name good again, and that was just a cool moment. And I also like that Emma suggested that she needs to get a proper sword. That was so funny.
That is funny because Emma has like the sword of swords.
Yes. Oh, and did you notice that Emma's middle name is Cordelia? Cause
Mhm. I noticed. Emma Cordelia Costas. What's Cordelia's? Is Cordelia Costas as well?
yes.
Yeah, Cordelia Costas. And that's so cool.
I also like I googled it, and it's actually weird because Emma's mother is called Cordelia, but obviously she's not a Costa. She's like Townsend.
Mhm. That is a bit weird, actually.
Yeah, so they just recycle the names.
Oh, they recycle so many names. Because like Clary Adele, and Adele is also someone.
Yeah,
But that's a bit. I don't think she should have done that. Actually, I think Cordelia should have come from Cordelia Costas.
but that was such a long time ago, though. But
I
I don't
know,
know
but
how.
they do carry the names down, so it's not like impossible.
Yeah, like it might have been like a double thing because it's from her mother and from her father's line.
Maybe.
But to be okay, we're gonna head into spoiler territory if I go into it.
I know it sucks that because we've read all the other books, we could talk about them, and there's so many connections to the other books in the book that we just read, Heavenly Fire. Like, there's so many connections to what's that series name? The Lost Hours.
Yeah.
And the Dark Artificers.
Speaking
There's so
of,
many connections.
there was also like a few links to the infernal devices that I picked up on.
Like, I'm sure I also picked up, but
I could probably mention it now before we get into what we disliked. So the London Institute, when it was attacked, I'm pretty sure like the
exactly. It
Jessamine.
was Jessamine.
Yeah.
And because Magnus hears about it and says that I hope she can find peace now. And so that's how we know it was Jessamine.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
That was so cute.
And even like Magnus refers to Tessa like in a story. When he was saying something, I don't know to who, but he referenced like an immortal woman who fell in love with a mortal and like a shadow hunter. And he was talking about it. And we were like, no.
About heartbreak.
Yes.
He was talking about heartbreak. I remember.
Yeah. And then the like middle name being Cordelia, which is technically a Lost Hours.
It's Lost Hours, so that's not Infernal Devices.
I just lumped them.
That...
Yeah.
Because James and Lucy and them are like
Yes.
Tessa's children and stuff. So.
Yeah. And then Simon at the end, when not really the end, but close to the end, when he's lost his memories and like Clary calls him up and pretends to like be calling about Homo. The book that he says they're reading in class is A Tale of Two Cities, and I was like,
and Will, I didn't even think about that. I was just trying to finish the book. But that's so true. That's so true.
And did we mention that Jace now has James Herondale's ring, which was probably Will before.
Which was probably, I don't know, because Will would have still had his, and then James would have had his own.
No, maybe Tessa kept Will's.
Maybe, and then gave James's to Jace.
Yeah.
I would like to think that.
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been better though if Jace's name was actually like a James somewhere instead of Jonathan? Because like I don't know, I'm not like really in love with the Jonathan name.
I don't like Jonathan either. I really don't, but I really like Jace. So
yeah,
I ain't mad.
Okay, that's like pretty much it. I'm sure there was more, but at that stage, I was just like,
no, if we think of something else, we can just mention it.
Yeah. Okay, and then did you have any dislikes?
I'm sure I did. Just one thing that's not actually part of the story is like the recycling of storylines. And even though it's fine and whatever, there's a part of me that doesn't like it because it's always one boy who loses his family, moves into an institute, finds a Parabatai, and then, and in both series we just read, that's what happened. So it's very recycled in a way.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I kind of don't like.
And that's what deters a lot of people from reading it. And that's what I also felt like when I read it before. I was like, I've just read this, but in the future. So why?
Exactly. It's basically the same storyline.
Yeah. And the only like time where you realize that it's not is in the epilogue. So you have to push through 3 books.
I mean, that's debatable, but we do like love the characters by now for who they are individually. But then also it's always a Herondale, and then the Herondales are all very similar, like they have very similar traits. So it is like reading about the same person. Will was this tortured soul, Jace is a tortured soul, you know, both
Yeah.
Herondales, and yeah, it's a bit recycled.
Yeah, you can tell that Cassie Clare is like a Buffy Angel stan. Like it comes across really well.
But I must say, the later books are better than the earlier books.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
like,
I think
and the style of her writing, because um the Dark Artificers is my favorite trilogy. I think we've said that now many times. But the style of the Dark Artificers, like the way it's written, the storyline, everything, is completely my favorite. And in this last book, in Heavenly Fire, I could see that style of writing and that way of storytelling that I like. And I'm like, okay, yes, here is the author that I really, really enjoy. And a pity it's like book number 9. you know, not a
yeah,
pity, but like book number 9 is the first one. I was like, okay, here it is. This is why I love Shadowhunters.
yeah, that's fair. And like my favorite is her very latest one, so I feel you.
Hmm.
We're not getting
Exactly.
to
It's like
it. Like, ooh.
evolving.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's
Although
cool.
we are. Hmm.
But also like you have to consider the time when things were written and like the other things that were in existence at the time as well and what was popular because Mortal Instruments came out like quite close to Twilight as well, and that was like
Hmm.
Team Jacob and Team Edward, and everyone wanted to be on somebody's like team. That
Hmm.
was like the thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm glad she started going into different directions with things and making her storylines a bit more complicated.
Diverse.
Yes, and like torturing them in different ways, not the same.
Hmm. Using other families and not only Herondales.
Oh yeah, but they're
Hmm.
still there though. Not the Dark
I
Art.
know.
Yeah, they yes. Never mind. They're yeah.
Hmm. But I
Never
feel like
mind.
James and Lucy have a bit of variety in their storylines.
Yeah, they do. I love those books so much, and I'm very excited for
Hmm.
book. I think it's still like a year before that one's released.
Yep, quite possibly.
They still have a lot to read. In the meantime,
Hmm.
uh,
But I'm so excited. Like we're now at the good books. We've now made it through, and we're now at the good ones. It's only going to be exciting from here.
yes, agreed. Um,
Do you have a least favorite?
there was like moments throughout the book where I was like on the verge of tears. Like I don't know if it was just my mood or whatever, but things just like got to me. But like the tears only fell when Julian had to kill his dad. I
Uh,
was like,
mhm,
could you? How could you make him need to do that in front of all of
mhm,
his siblings, in front of Ty? Like that would mess me up so much if I had to do something like that. I don't
mhm.
know if I'd be able to do something like that. So like
I know that's why Diana admired their bravery so much and admired what Julian did and wanted to become part of their lives.
yeah. Um yeah, that was like a big thing for me. Um
Mhm.
and then I also wrote here that seeing Jonathan as he might have been broke my heart. Like it's not
I
necessarily
know.
favorite, but like it really got to me and I was like
Mhm.
he could have
Honestly, that's
just
one of my favorite parts. Like
yeah,
because it's so emotional and because we see what could have been, and the dream or the vision Clary had when she entered Edom, um like we get a glimpse of what could have been, and I
it
really
makes
liked it. Like it was one of my favorite parts.
yeah. It just like is going to give them more to think about now later. But it was a nice moment for Jocelyn to see like the son that she was meant to have, and like Clary to see the brother she was meant to have. But and I don't know if that gave them closure or like not, because it would have been easy in a way for him to have just died and to just have been an evil thing. But now seeing like what they lost out on even more.
Maybe, but I think maybe it's good for Jocelyn to have seen that and seen that it's not her fault, and like it really was Valentine that did this, and she could have had a son, like a loving, normal son, and maybe it is a bit of closure because she cried over the son that she didn't have every single year on his birthday, and maybe it was like, okay, I cried for a reason. He could have been this way, you know. And I think Clary found closure by throwing his ashes into Lake Lynn.
Yeah. Agreed. Also that like whole scene with like Simon getting ripped away from them was really emotional. Even, like I knew what was going to happen this time, but before, when I didn't know, I was like, why? How dare you do this? Like,
I know that's really not a nice part of the story. Simon being taken away.
but it was really clever what she did and
But
how she
it
did
was
it.
really clever because I had kind of forgotten how Simon unvampires. We unsilent brother and unvampire. Um and like obviously now I read it, now I know, but it was very clever because of where the story is gonna go from here.
Yep, agreed. But probably the scenes that I liked the least, and I've mentioned this before, was like the court scenes and how the shadow hunters who are currently in power treated everybody else around them. And like we know the things that they're doing is gonna have consequences. And you can't just treat like children how you want, and even like other people who are meant to be your equals, you can't just like oppress people without consequence.
And mhm. And Magnus
He
knows
told
that it's not gonna be a good thing.
yeah. But yeah, they all should know though, that's the thing. But you can kind of see that they're doing it out of fear. Like they don't, when so many people die, and like the Indarkend happening was probably the worst thing that happened in Shadowhunter history, and because Jonathan died, they don't have anyone else to blame other than the
The
fairies.
fairies.
Yeah, so they're taking it out, which is interesting, and I wonder if like she was taking that from actual events in history.
I wouldn't know.
Because like that's also kind of how apartheid started. Wasn't it a bit differently as well? Like it was indirectly other people's fault for like the Boer War. It wasn't to do with the people living in South Africa, but then the result of it was that the Afrikaners really wanted to isolate themselves from everybody around them, like any kind of stranger. So interesting. And like, to be fair, it's I'm actually surprised that the Shadowhunters only took it out on the fairies and not all of Downworld, because they easily could have gone like really like extra and been like, only Shadowhunters. We don't trust anybody else anymore ever.
I'm not surprised because of Maya. I think if it wasn't for Maya, they would have done that. But Maya really proved to them that she is an ally and she is on their side. But I think if Maya didn't do what she did, then
Mm-hmm.
maybe they would have. But because of Maya, they were ready for the fairies' attack.
Mm,
So I think Maya is a very big reason for that.
agreed. And also, if Gia, I don't know how to say her, if
Gia, I say Gia.
she wasn't like in charge, and if it was somebody else,
Like the previous Inquisitor. I mean, Not Inquisitor Consul. Like the previous consul was a horrible person.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, I think that's all I kind of have to say. Did you say your least favorite part yet?
I said a few things I didn't like, but yes, I said the recycling.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, do you want to move on to questions?
Let me just do you have a question you want to ask while I check something?
Let me think of one because I didn't write any down this time. And my dogs are chewing things now. Thanks, Dad.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. So I want to know. Wait, what was my question? Oh, do you like the first trilogy? So, the Mortal Instruments is 6 books, right? First trilogy and then like the second trilogy. So, did you like the first trilogy or the second trilogy more?
Oh, that's difficult. They're so different, though.
Exactly.
Like I don't know, because I
That's why
like
I'm asking, because they are so different. So it's like easy to have an opinion.
I like them for different reasons, I guess. But I probably like the second trilogy more now because of how like interwoven it is with the infernal devices and like how especially this last book really references so many parts of the Shadowhunter world, and it really shows how she's developed as a writer and how she really put a lot of thought into the world. Whereas, like, the initial trilogy, like, she could have just done that and stopped. But
Yeah, she didn't know her books were gonna go where they went.
she did set it up a little bit at the end. Like, you can see that there was like open endings, so she had like ideas of where she could go. But the second trilogy really showed like her skill, and I really got much more attached to a lot of the side characters in the second trilogy, and cared more about people. So, yeah. What about you?
Same. I like the second one a lot more, also because of all the connections to the rest of the books, and because what I mentioned previously is I really saw the writing. The reason I saw the writing behind the reason why I love Shadowhunters, because it's hard to read the first trilogy and be confident and say yes, Shadowhunters is my favorite. What's the word? World, you
Yeah.
know, ever. And it's hard to look at the first 3 and say that confidently. But after reading up until where we have, I can be like, okay, there it is. That's what I mean. Okay, and then I have another question in my head. Which book out of the 6 was your favorite?
This one. Yeah. And
Okay.
yours?
Mine, I really love this one a lot, but I think my favorite was the previous one, just because of the floating apartment situation. I don't know why. I really loved that. That was like one of my favorite things.
That
Yeah.
was cool.
And then Clary like going into it. But I really did love this book as well. I loved how Emma and Julian and them were a big part of it. So this book really is like kind of a beginning. It's like an ending, but it's also a beginning, you
Yeah.
know? Whereas the previous book, I really like the apartment. I like the scenes where they were like in Venice and all of that.
And it makes me curious how she's going to end like the entire series and how it's going to end, because most of her endings have always introduced like where we're going from here. It has never really wrapped
It's never been
any.
an ending.
Yeah. So
Yes, that's true. Because this book is an ending to a series, but it's a beginning to everything else.
yeah,
Mhm.
because so many sprouted from here, like
Mhm.
Dark Artifices. What is that?
Lost
Freaking
Hours. Oh,
yeah,
and the other one with Magnus. There's also a trilogy with Magnus and Alec as the main
yeah,
characters.
the Red Scrolls, but that's
Um, the
called
Red Scrolls
the
is not
first
the yeah, it's not the trilogy's name. What's the trilogy's name?
one.
I should remember. I feel so bad for not remembering. But that trilogy is so fun. It's just like so much fun. It's like not even to be taken seriously. It's just fun.
And it's not finished yet. We're still waiting for book 3 in that one as well.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
still got
I'm
a lot.
excited for that too because Helen and Aileen are feature so much in it and everything. Okay, so we all know that reading in publication order is the way to go, but what do you think now, having finished the first 9 books in publication order?
As opposed to,
Not publication order, as opposed to one series and another trilogy.
I think you like would lose out on so much because I've already like pretty much like kind of forgotten what's happened in previous books. Like I always remember like the main storylines, but the little
Mm-hmm.
details, if you read like say Infernal Devices and then this, like yeah, you'll kind of remember, but by the end of book 6, you would have totally forgotten like about who Cherm is and
What's
why it's
that warlock's name with the angel around her neck?
like I don't know, you just
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't have the same impact. And like I did it the other way around. I read the Mortal Instruments first and then I read the Infernal Devices and I got so bored. I think like I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember where I DNF'd, but I DNF'd and I was like, just there's no point to this story. I don't know where it's going. I didn't care about any
Mm-hmm.
of them. So I feel like publication order is essential to make like your proper connections to all of the characters. And even with the second half of um, the Mortal Instruments, I didn't care at like book 4. I was like, why are we reading from Simon's perspective all of a sudden? And like, I don't know, half the things people are saying, I have no idea what this person's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know, you wouldn't know where Camille came from and who Magnus keeps talking about, and it's just so sad to miss out on that. And I don't know, it makes me very sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I
Exactly.
decided to read it in publication order.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so else I wouldn't
It
have known.
mm-hmm. It makes the reading experience worth it.
It does. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I always ask people if they don't like Shadowhunters, have they read it in the right order? Because otherwise, I sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like looking at an incomplete puzzle. It's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
crap.
Yeah, because like I said, all the books fit into each other like puzzle pieces, and even our puzzle isn't complete yet because we have so much to go, but it's just so satisfying seeing all those pieces fit into where they need to go.
Agreed.
Hmm.
Ugh.
Okay, I
I
think
don't
that
think.
is all then.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we can
Okay,
wrap
wait,
up
do you have a favorite character now that we finished?
from which books, like
From
from.
both, from all 9 we've read so far.
Um, I think Gem. I
Hmm.
think it's my favorite.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Jem is a good character. Do you still love Simon as much as you did in the first book?
Yes, I do like Simon as well,
Mm-hmm.
but I like Gem because he's in all of them. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's just Mortal Instruments, it might probably be Simon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
Jace,
now we're talking all the books.
yeah. And what about
Is
you?
Jace not your favorite anymore?
No, I think I've grown as a person.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, it's so hard for me to say because I really love Tessa, but then Tessa, there's so many things that like make her not worth being a favorite, you know? But
Mhm.
I do love Tessa and obviously Magnus, but Magnus really becomes my favorite after the Bane Chronicles. That's like what solidifies his character for me, and we're about to read that next. So I think saying Magnus after the 9 wouldn't make much sense, but um, yeah, I do love him. And I kind of like Alec as well, but the thing with Alec is that I see myself in Alec so much. Like, I think Alec and I are like the same person. I don't know why. I just like if you were to ask me who am I if I was to be one of those characters, it would be Alec. So,
That's
yeah.
fair.
hmm
I don't know if I see myself in any of the characters.
I don't know. I actually can't think. I actually did think, and I was like, I don't know. Whereas Alec is like 100%. I'm like, that's me. I see myself in him so much. Yeah. Okay, so anything else, or are we finished?
I did just want to mention that there are some really good quotes in this book. I didn't
Mhm.
take pictures this time, but there are some really like
Mhm.
quotable moments in this book, and it's really, really worth it.
Yeah, they are. They
Um,
really are.
but yeah, I think we can wrap up. And I also wanted to mention that we are reading Bane Chronicles technically in October, so this month, and we're planning to have a weekend readathon type thing that's in the works, and
Mhm.
we'll have
Mhm.
announcements on Instagram, maybe
Mhm.
YouTube. Haven't decided.
Maybe I don't know. It's going to be called the Bane Read Along.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's gonna be exciting because we all love Magnus, and it's our first short story collection. So I think it's going to be fun.
yeah, and
So
it's
look out
chill.
for that. Mhm.
It's chill, like a lot of lifestyle type prompts, like really fun ones, not really like reading prompts because we're going to be focusing on that specific book.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm so excited. The Bane Chronicles is my favorite book in all of Shadowhunters, so I'm very much looking forward to it.
I'm also really excited for it, especially since it got mentioned in this book.
Mhm.
Like, just the way it came into the story just makes me love it
Mhm.
even more. I don't think I really like cared that much because the first time we read it, the resource that we found that gave you like, sorry, my dogs are choking. They're fine. The resource that told us like what was publication order switched
I'm
Heavenly Fire.
so annoyed. So years and years ago, I looked up publication order, and you did as well, and it said that um, Bane Chronicles was before Heavenly Fire. So I
Mhm.
think both of us might have read it in that order. We read Bane Chronicles before Heavenly Fire the previous time, and then I made a whole video talking about or showing the reading order, and then I put Bane Chronicles before Heavenly Fire, and turns out that's not correct, and now I have a video that is wrong. So um
Okay. To be fair, like probably lots of people made that mistake, and it's because they were published in the same year. So
mhm,
they may have come out like before each other in different countries, or like whoever made the list or whatever. So, but yeah,
maybe I don't know, but I think it's a cool thing that we're gonna take a break from a trilogy and things now because we have Bane Chronicles and um
Tales from the Shadowhunter
Tales.
Academy.
I was like Shadow Hunter. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. We have both of them coming up next before our next trilogy. So it's quite nice to have finished all of the trilogies and series now, and then do the short story collections for the rest of the year, take a little break in December, and then start January with our next trilogy. So I think it worked out very good.
It's very satisfying how it worked out because I was like really bothered with starting Dark Artifact starting it in December. I can't talk anymore.
Mhm.
Like just the one book, and then going into
Yeah.
the new year, book
No, I think
two.
it's necessary that we take December off. Okay, I'm being dug at by a dog, so she's impatient now. So I think that's my sign to go.
Let's
Let's see if
wrap.
she wants. Hmm?
We can wrap up
Hmm.
and say goodbye.
Okay, so remember to, I mean, thank you for joining us if you did watch. And remember to follow us on Instagram, which is the most important. We post the most there. Goodreads and Twitter. I'm not actually sure if we still post on Twitter. I don't think
Occasionally,
so.
I
But
remember.
Instagram is the most important. Join our Goodreads chat because we do check it. And if you want to leave a comment or something for us to talk about in the live show, we do it over there. And next month we will be reading the Bane Chronicles, so be sure to join us. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, and join in for the read along because it's going to be
Hmm.
super fun. Very
Hmm.
excited for it. So yeah,
Yes.
see you, and we'll see
Okay.
you next time or like later in this.
Bye. Yes. Bye.